Today we'll have a look at a pen by one of the Italian manufacturers, Stipula. And this pen was sent to me for review by Ron from penchalet.com. And I was very eager to try this one out. And this is the Stipula Splash. It's been out for a while. It's marketed as a flex pen, and I know that people go berserk over flex, so I thought it would be interesting to try this out. So first of all, Ron, thanks a lot for sending me this pen. I found it very fascinating to try this one out. Okay, the box. Simple box, but nice. Red. Pops open with a magnet closure, and then right there is the pen and the Stipula logo in gold. You have a little bed which you can lift out, and then at the bottom here is a warranty booklet. Not at all bad. Also gives you some interesting overview of the Stipula nibs, which I think is actually pretty nice. 1.1 metallic, for example, looks very neat. Filling instructions, you know, the works. That's all in there. It's nicely done. Now, interestingly enough, I took out the pen and I was immediately struck by this feeling of deja vu, and I thought, what is going on here? I have seen this before. It's, you know, baby, I've been here before. I've opened this box and I've dropped it on the floor, because that's usually what happens with me. Do you see this? Do you see the uncanny resemblance? This is the Stipula Splash. This is the dollar pen. As I understand it, the dollar pen company is from Pakistan, and they make pens that in some parts of the world cost $1, and in other parts cost about $15 to $18. And the Stipula Splash costs $75. And you know, it's not exactly the same pen. This is not going to be a formal shootout, but it's impossible for me to not draw the parallels between the two. So let's first cover the parts of the Splash. Of course, I'll do the writing sample, I'll tell you what I like about it and don't like about it, but first cover the parts, and then I'll do a quick comparison. Alright? So, the cap I really enjoy. The finial is really nice. It's the little laurel leaf that's also in the sort of laurel crown logo of Stipula. This is nice. It looks good, little leaf. I really like the detail. It's an original finial. Then you have this clip. The clip is pretty springy, does what you would expect of a clip. It's easy to use, and because of that ball, it's easy to slip into a pen pouch or a shirt pocket. Okay, then we have the cap, and I actually thought the cap was made of a pretty nice material. You see that little material. This is a nice pattern, I thought, so that's quite cool. You have a little center band, then you have the barrel, the piston. It's a piston filler. You can see the piston assembly there, the actual piston, and then the threads. You operate with the turning knob, which is chrome colored. And then you have the section and the Stipula, the Splash nib. And this nib has 3 laurel leaves on either side of a very deep split, so the nib slit runs very deeply down, almost into the section, and it says flex. And then you have you see the deep groove there, very deep nib slit, and then you have the section there. And then, the feed there, and then the section. Now you can see it's a piston filler. It's about a little over half full right now. Well, there's that piston unit. So you turn the knob, and then you can see the ink level rise. I don't want to overdo it, because just the other day I splashed quite some ink all over me. And that's pretty much it. This section is very original shape. It's it kind of tapers down, as you can see there. It's quite original. Now. Here we have the dollar pen, and the dollar pen has a different cap. It's clear. It has a completely different finial, as you can see there. As I said, different clip, but has that same center band. The two pens are the same size. The piston turning knob was changed on the Stipula, or was, I don't think they put chrome on it. It's a little smaller than the one in the dollar pen, but as you can see, the piston assembly, for example, is identical. And if I uncap both pens and I show you the sections, you may actually have to give it a second look to see which of the two is the Stipula and which is the dollar pen. And just to be sure, the bottom pen is the dollar pen. Now, the nibs are not the same. The feeds are not the same either. So there definitely is a bit of a difference. But it is very clear that Stipula has used the body from this dollar pen. And of course, I'm assuming they had authorization from the dollar pen company to do that. This in itself is not unique. So before we start to discuss what I like about it and not like about it, using a pen body from another manufacturer is not new. Nutless does it all the time. They have used all kinds of Indian pen bodies, including the dollar pen. They have used this on their original rollerball, which had the exact same body, the same section, but had a rollerball tip. And one thing I will say about that was that it's not in production anymore, and to be honest, I forgot the cost, but I think it was something like $15, maybe $20, if that. But that was, as I said, not a fountain pen, but a rollerball. So it is possible that the dollar pen company actually assists other manufacturers and allows them to use the bodies, or even produces the pens for them. I don't know where this pen was assembled. I don't know if the splash was actually assembled in Italy or anything, but clearly the same body. Okay, what do I like about it and what do I not like about it? Well, what I like about it, small pen, it's very portable, it does post, and then it makes for a decently sized pen. The section, it's weird. It's an odd section. I don't think I have ever seen this before, except of course in the dollar pen. And although it doesn't really look comfortable, I have to admit, I found it very pleasant to hold. It does have a shape that your fingers kind of fit around in a fairly natural sense, and it does make for a pleasant section to use. So that's great. It is a piston filler. It is $75. That is not super cheap, but as piston fillers go, there are a lot more, way more expensive options. So a piston filler, that's not bad. There's also cheaper options, but it's nice that it's a piston filler, not just standard cartridge converter filled pen. I think that's very nice too. Okay, so that's what I like, and to be honest, in all honesty, I have to admit, I kind of like this dollar body. I think it's small, but I think it looks nice. One thing the dollar pen has is an actual blind cap, so you can post the cap and then unscrew it, and that exposes the actual turning knob. Stipula integrated that turning knob, so you don't have to remove anything, you can just use it. The downside to that is that if you post the pen, you could of course accidentally operate the turning knob, but to be honest, it's a bit of a step down and I have not had that issue. So even if I turn this, I do not operate the piston, which is a good thing. So these are all things I like. Things I don't like so much. Well, there's two issues. One issue is what I have been blabbering on about for quite a while now, which is the use of a very inexpensive pen body, which, as I said, sells for dollars, and then resell it as a $75 pen, because it is not fitted with a gold nib. This is a steel nib. Yes, it is a flex nib, but it's still a steel nib. So there was not a giant cost involved in creating those nibs. That's one part of the issue. But that, I think, is a discussion maybe even of aesthetics, of whether that is, you know, pleasing to the eye, but also if that is something you want to do. Clearly, Stipula has not just stolen this body, right? They've used it in authorized fashion, so I don't think that's an issue. My biggest issue with the pen, by far, was that it has serious issues keeping up with ink flow if you flex it. And this is marketed as a pen with a flexi nib. The nib is even marked flex. when you flex it, it railroads very quickly. And that is not an uncommon problem either. We see that in a lot of modern flex pens, but it is an issue if you really market your pen as being a flex pen, I think. So that was an issue, and I have tried a couple of inks. I've tried cleaning the nib and feed and everything very well. I don't think that's the issue. I think the feed is inadequate for full flexing. Now, if you do not flex the pen to its full capacity, but just a little bit, to get a little bit of line variation, I mean, I have been pretty harsh in my testing, then the feed keeps up better. Even then, you can still get railroading. If you use the pen as is, as a fine nibbed writer, there are no real issues. It doesn't really run dry, at least I haven't experienced that, so it is mainly with the flexing that you get the issues. But of course, again, it is marketed as a flex pen, so that is a big deal. So, what's my final verdict before we go on to the writing sample? Well, it's a cute pen, it's small, it's wieldable. I review a lot of large pens because I like large pens, but there are a lot of people with smaller hands. And I think if you have smaller hands, this pen is really ideal. Very portable, you can take it with you, it will fit your hands. I mean, even I with larger hands can use this unposted, so in that regard I think it's a lot of fun. Are there also other options available that may even be cheaper and do the same thing? Yes, definitely. So it's a pen that's in a tough price segment, I think. There is a lot of stuff out there that I think is a more reliable writer, but if you're looking for a flex pen, you don't want to spend an insane amount on a vintage pen, well, you could try this, and maybe with some fiddling you can make it perform better. Okay, now, having said all of that, I will give you some measurements, and then we'll do a writing sample. The Stipula Splash, inked, because it is a piston filler, it holds quite some ink, has a weight of 18 grams. The cap weight is 6 grams, the body 12 grams. Cap length is 126.4 millimeters or 4.97 inches. Uncapped length is 114.4 millimeters, that's 4.5 inches. Posted, it has a length of 140 millimeters, that's 5.51 inches. Barrel diameter ranges from 9.6 to 10.9 millimeters, that's 0.37 to 0.43 inches. Section diameter is 7.8 to 9.9 millimeters, and that's 0.30 to 0.39 inches. Alright, let's do a writing sample. Ron, thanks again for sending me this pen to try out, I really appreciated it. Let's see how it writes. I hope this was useful so far, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye. Alright, so here we go with the Stipula Splash, and I'm going to use it first in the normal writing mode. And as you can see, it writes very well. The ink, by the way, is Akamon Blue, Royal Blue. Just a fine nib, writes well, good ink flow. There is really no issues here. So if you were to buy this pen and use it in this mode, I think there's nothing wrong with that. Good flow, bit of feedback from the nib, but it is a pretty fine nib, and it's really quite nice to use. If we're going to go for fast writing, you see that the ink flow keeps up very well. As to wetness, well, I would not really call this pen a gusher, but if you do not flex it, it actually gives you a pretty nice wet ink writing experience. But of course, the nib is labeled flex, as you may or may not be able to read, but it's right there at the bottom. And we want to see what it does flex-wise. So I'm just going to take this easy and just slowly add more pressure with every line. And as I go slow, you can see that this is not at all a terrible performance, that we start to get railroading, but I am really pushing the pen there. For the record, I have not primed the feed before I started this writing sample, and that is important. Now, if we were to do some flex writing, and I'm trying to not go too fast here, but also not slow down too much. You see the pen runs into some problems there, but to be honest, I still find this performance quite good. But here we go. This is more characteristic of what I experienced as I was testing the pen. Now, I mean, it is good to realize that this is really pushing the pen to its max, but you can see that as I flex more, the feed has increasing issues to keep up. This is really pushing a pen to try and flex it that quickly, and if you go a bit slower, results are better. But even then, I have the feeling this paper is fairly forgiving, because I have had considerably worse experiences with this before. Now, it is an interesting pen, and if you don't push it to the max, so if you only use it for light flex, which is what I'll do here, I'm not pushing the nib to its limit, I'm just getting a little bit of flex out. You see the performance is not horrible. There's a bit of railroading, but I was writing fairly quickly. Maybe if you go a bit slower, you'll have less issues. So, it's not a terrible pen. It flexes, that's for sure, but I don't think this is a magnificent flexing miracle either. So, I hope this was useful. Again, I thank Ron from the Pen Chalet for sending me this pen. I hope the review has given you some ideas on whether or not you may want to get this pen. And just for the record, this is unflexed Splash. This is the dollar pen, unflexed. I do not think, in all honesty, the dollar pen writes terribly. The only thing is it will not flex. That is a very stiff nib, so you cannot just buy a dollar pen and have the same flexibility as you have with the Splash. Okay guys, hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later.